Hello, Weirlings. It's your friendly neighborhood lizard lady. This is a part of the Staircase series and a standalone video, which means you can listen to this without having to listen to the rest of the series. This series is going to explore the Michael Peterson case, also known as the Staircase. I started my research wanting to look into the owl theory more deeply than most other true crime creators, so taking a sort of devil's advocate approach. And oh boy, did I learn a lot. Chronologically, the first thing to look at is the death of Elizabeth Ratliff. Let's get into it. Elizabeth Ann Liz McKee was born November 3rd, 1942 in Rhode Island. Elizabeth was raised with two sisters on a farm in Rhode Island. She was said to be a serious artistic child. She sang and played acoustic guitar and spoke French and German. She taught children of military families for 17 years, including elementary school at Rhein-Main Air Force Base while living in Grafenhausen, Germany. While teaching, she met Captain George Ratliff, an Air Force navigator. They married in 1981. In 1981, they had a daughter, Margaret. 2 years later, in 1983, their second daughter, Martha, was born. In 1985, they were living on the same German base where Michael Peterson and his wife, Patricia Sue, were also stationed. Elizabeth was found at the bottom of the stairs in the home she shared with her family. Her death was investigated by both German police and the U.S. military police. The autopsy concluded that Elizabeth died from an intracerebral hemorrhage secondary to von Willebrand's disease, a blood clotting disorder. This was based on blood found in her cerebrospinal fluid and reports that she had been suffering from severe, persistent headaches in the weeks leading up to her death. Basically, she had a rare blood disorder that made bleeding in the brain more likely. Those are a lot of big words. What does it all mean? Elizabeth died from bleeding inside her brain, caused by a blood clotting disorder called von Willebrand's disease. This was determined after finding blood in the fluid surrounding her brain and spinal cord. And she'd been dealing with brutal, non-stop headaches for weeks. The coroner determined that the hemorrhage caused immediate death, and Elizabeth subsequently collapsed at the bottom of the stairs. I want to point something out. People with disorders like von Willebrand's disease, which prevent blood from clotting properly, are advised not to take aspirin or drink alcohol, since both thin the blood. Even the smallest cut can gush. A possible explanation for the whole scene is that she had an aneurysm or a stroke. Because her condition prevented her blood from clotting, it was impossible to get help in time. Elizabeth's autopsy didn't mention bruises, which to me suggests she didn't fall. She simply collapsed at the bottom of the stairs. The night of Elizabeth's death, Michael and his first wife had dinner with Elizabeth and her daughters. Michael stayed to help Elizabeth put her daughters to bed before he returned home. The next day, Barbara, the Ratliff family nanny, found Elizabeth dead at the bottom of the stairs. Michael was the last known person to see her alive. Before the trial for Kathleen's murder, Elizabeth's body, embalmed and buried in Texas, was exhumed. In April 2003, Elizabeth's body was sent to Durham for a second autopsy, performed by the same medical examiner who performed Kathleen's autopsy. The defense objected, rightfully so. Why do I say that? I'm not saying the examiner was wrong, but they went into the autopsy knowing Elizabeth was connected to a man they already believed had murdered another woman. That sounds like bias and tunnel vision to me. They weren't looking at it with a clean slate. They had the scissors out to make the puzzle pieces fit, then forced them into place. Allegedly. The Durham medical examiner found, in their words, sufficient evidence, along with new eyewitness statements, 20 years later, describing the scene to overturn the previous cause of death and declare it a homicide. Now, let's pause. After being embalmed, signs of bleeding on the brain are gone, and any bruises, especially after 20 years, are gone. The only things that might still be detectable are broken bones. But if any had been found and not noted in the first autopsy, well, she was flown in the cargo area of a plane from Germany to Texas. Let all of that sink in, weirdlings. In her will, Elizabeth named Michael and Patricia the legal guardians of her daughters, who were 4 and 2 at the time. Her $4,000 estate would go to her daughters' support and education. When Michael and Patricia divorced, the girls went to live with Michael and later Kathleen. Some people speculate that Michael and Patricia's adoption of Elizabeth's daughters means Michael was having an affair with Elizabeth. Here's a less scandalous explanation. Both couples were friends, both husbands served together, and both wives taught at the elementary school. Given how close military and expat families are on base, and that Michael and Patricia were named in Elizabeth's will, it's safe to assume they were the girls' godparents. Captain Ratliff needed help with the girls. Because of the military, he let his good friends adopt his daughters to give them a stable 2-parent life after their mother died. Nothing scandalous. No one would bat an eyelash if nothing else had happened. The prosecution declined to accuse Michael of Elizabeth's death, but still referenced it in the trial, claiming it gave him the idea of how to, in their words, fake Kathleen's accident. Police reports stated that there was very little blood at the scene. Given Elizabeth's condition, von Willebrand's disease, any external injuries would have produced blood everywhere. The nanny, who was the first person to discover Elizabeth's body, took the stand in Michael's trial and said there was a lot of blood at the scene. Another witness testified to spending a long stretch of time that day cleaning bloodstains off the wall. I'm not saying they were lying, but it was over a decade later. Eyewitness testimony is normally not used as the sole piece of evidence for a reason. Memory is fallible. You don't remember a memory exactly as it happened. You remember the last time you recall the event. Think of it like a tape or a file. If you change one small piece of punctuation or a single frame, your brain remembers that change the next time you recall the event. Over time, these small changes alter the big picture in your mind. There's a philosophical brain teaser known as the ship of Theseus. It's the perfect metaphor for understanding memory and eyewitness testimony. First, imagine the ship of Theseus. Over time, every plank of wood is removed, one by one. Is it still the same ship after each piece is removed and replaced? What if you took the removed pieces and assembled them into another identical boat? Which one is the real ship of Theseus? The one that had its planks removed over time, or the one that was made of the original pieces from the ship, or both, or neither? When we are born, we have one complete set of cells, but as we age, the cells are replaced. Are we still the same person even though none of our parts are original? Are you still the same person you were born as, just older and hopefully wiser? Let's look at the ship of Theseus in the concept of memory. Here, the ship is the physical evidence, the police report noting little to no blood at the crime scene. The eyewitness testimony is the planks being removed and replaced each time the memory is accessed. Memory can be influenced by fear, trauma, and time. In this case, time, over 10 years, trauma, finding someone close to you dead, and fear, being told you must testify in a murder case, all influence memory. It all feels so real that you trust your memory no matter what others tell you. So, what's the truth? The eyewitness testimony? The police reports? Or a little bit of both? There's a saying, there are always 3 sides to every story. Yours, mine, and the truth. I first heard this from Shaba Loden Rains on YouTube, and it really puts things into perspective. The truth is usually somewhere in the middle, or a combination of the two. Courts often give more weight to memory, even reconstructed memory, than to the physical evidence it may contradict. It's up to the jury to decide which ship is real. To me, that doesn't really seem fair. What would you trust more, watching a movie yourself or listening to your friend describe the entire film line by line over dinner? Both are true in a sense, but one is more accurate. I'm not saying the witnesses are lying. To themselves, they are telling the truth. In this case, and others, we should put more weight on the evidence the police collected at the scene. I'm not saying the police are always right, or that they never lie or fabricate evidence. In this case, they had no bias going in. They were simply documenting the scene. Just because the police were present doesn't mean it was foul play. When there is an unattended death, the police are always called. An unattended death is when someone dies without a physician present. In this case, the victim, Elizabeth, was found dead by the nanny. The police, both German authorities and the U.S. Air Force military police, investigated because Elizabeth was married to an Air Force member. Both agencies concluded it was a non-homicidal, accidental death. It's hard enough to get two people to agree to something, let alone two law enforcement agencies. With all that in mind, my conclusion is that Elizabeth Ratliff's death was caused by an underlying health condition, one she may not have fully understood herself. In 2005, Michael's attorneys used eyewitness testimony from Elizabeth's death in their appeal, attempting to have the prosecution overturned. Next, we'll dive into Kathleen Peterson's death. Believe me, it's not as straightforward as everyone thinks. Sleep well, brilliance, and don't be afraid to change the angle you look at the evidence. The truth isn't always obvious on the surface.